Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel where we review anything and everything. And today we are getting into this Jurassic World Rebirth Rumble and Rampage Distortus Rex, or otherwise known as the D-Rex. So I purchased this, my son actually requested it, so I'm not gonna unbox it here. I'm gonna let him unbox it when he gets a chance off camera, and then I will review it after that. So right now we're just gonna go through elements on the box and things that we can see here. And then afterwards, we're gonna pause the video and then come back to do the full review. So first I wanted to just show you guys the Try Me feature. So let's angle this like this. You know, and what's interesting is the D-Rex is one of those creatures where, I don't know if I'll be, okay, you could try, this has a second motion too, where you go like that, and it's able to swing. You can't turn it that way because of the box, but you go like that, so it can whack things, because I believe there's a point inside the movie where it does smack something out of the way with its hands. I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's look at the back, and then I'll say what I was gonna say after that. Distortus Rex, Rumble and Rampage. So this is the bigger version, because there's a smaller version that comes with a little kind of like miniature playset of stuff. Has a slash attack. Obviously you press the button and it roars. And that's pretty much about it. It's a pretty big figure. I would say somewhat in line with your T-Rexes and whatnot for the line. The only difference is this one has a very thick body, because that's the design of it. It looks like it's maybe a little bit smaller than the scale of what he's supposed to be, and we'll get more into that later on inside the video, and I'll have a smaller man to compare to, one of the Jurassic Park human figures. But it's definitely pretty big, and it definitely falls roughly within that range that it feels good enough in the size to be, you know, to have it, you know, like the scene where it attacks the Jeep. And I'll try to remember to include that, because I have the Jeep. I don't think it's the exact, I don't know if it's the exact Jeep, but it's inspired by that scene. So in the main enemy guy, I have reviewed that set already. So I'll try to bring that one into frame after this is out of the package, just so you get a sense of, you know, how that scales to it, and if it resembles that. Matter of fact, you know what? I'm gonna just bring that into frame now, just so I don't forget, just in case later. So give me a second. Okay, here we go. So this is that Jeep, and I'll line them up so we can see the scaling of it a little bit better. So there, you can see it there. And it'd be kind of like the scene where this guy, and this is the main enemy in the set, where he's driving by, and then the Distortus Rex ends up, get him to stand up, I'll lean him against the car, and the Distortus Rex slams his fist against the front, and then afterwards the whole thing just kind of pops up, and afterwards he picks this guy out of the car, and then he eats him. Does he eat? I can't remember if he, I think he does eat him, or does he toss him? I can't really remember, but I want to say that he eats him. But so it scales pretty well. You know, I think the D-Rex was a little bit bigger than this relative to scale, but it still scales pretty well. I think that the D-Rex, in all honesty, I'm gonna take this out of frame now. I thought that the D-Rex was actually pretty cool in the movie, but it's like, it's kind of like a tug of war, a bit of give and take, because I thought he was cool in the movie. I thought it was something about it from a sci-fi perspective was cool, yet I didn't like it for being in Jurassic Park, if that makes sense. I kind of felt that way originally about the Indominus Rex as well, where I liked the Indominus Rex in the movie. That movie, it wasn't more of a horror aspect. It did feel more natural dinosaur-like. I enjoyed him in the movie, but yet I didn't like that there's a hybrid dinosaur, if that makes sense. So you feel this tug of war. And the same thing with the D-Rex. This feels more like a horror movie monster type of thing. In that, I say it's definitely different than the Indominus. Indominus didn't feel like a horror movie type of creature. It just felt like it just felt like a hybrid dinosaur, like an enhanced dinosaur that was causing destruction. This feels more like horror movie reminds me more of like, say, Resident Evil, the video game, not the movie, but the video game, the very first one, where, you know, if anyone's ever played that game before and went through it in its entirety, throughout the whole game, even though you're seeing all these different kind of creatures and monsters, similar to how you're seeing all these different things with these other dinosaurs and hybrid dinosaurs throughout the time of the island, in that game, they always speak about the tyrant as if it's the secret thing. Yes, you see all these other things running around that already get you scared and this and that, but the tyrant was always this kind of forbidden kind of creature that was like, oh, you know, you see in little notes, they have like little things you would read in the game. It'd be like, but watch out for tyrant, or let's get rid of all these samples, but not tyrant, or be careful with tyrant, duplicate everything, but be careful with tyrant. It is always something that made you think like, what is this tyrant thing? What is this? You know, and in the same vibe with Distortus Rex, it was like in the beginning of the movie, they show it and they're always speaking of the creature. Oh, the creature in that scene and blah, blah. They say, it's loose. Like, it's like this experiment that was, we know we experimented with dinosaurs. We know we cloned dinosaurs. We know we did hybrid dinosaurs they were attempting to do, all this kind of crazy stuff. But this was the one thing that didn't go right, or is just like a monstrosity that it was like, be careful with this. And if people understand the vibe I'm referring to when it comes to the Resident Evil, and you had that vibe when you were going through it back in those days or whenever, you understand what I'm talking about. That's the aspect that made this feel cool to me from a horror movie perspective, from an experiment gone wrong. We created some kind of monster perspective, but from a Jurassic Park, Jurassic World kind of movie, as far as fitting into that genre, I was bothered from it from that point, because the series has gotten so far away from its natural, normal roots that it's no longer the same movie. Similar to the way people feel about Fast and the Furious. When you watch the first movie, it was, you know, just the movie that it was, is about cars, and now it is about something totally different. I'm sorry for that rant, because I know it's just about the review on this, but like I said, since I didn't want to open it yet, I just kind of wanted to get wrapped up into a little bit of the talking points. So I'm going to pause the video now, and when I return, we're going to have this out of the packaging, and we're going to review it and everything of the sort, including measurements and whatnot. All right, you guys, we are back, and what I want to do now is I want to come in at this angle first, at this lower flat plane angle. I recently kind of had to update my equipment, some of my videos with reviewing some of these Jurassic World figures, and where I can get a little bit lower. So I want to do that first, and then later on I'm going to transition to a more like slightly overhead view, not completely overhead, but a little bit higher angle. But the reason why is this: I like doing this view now that I'm able to, for size comparison with humans, so you get an idea of what they look like next to the regular size figures of the line. Let me see if I can make this guy stand. This guy, I don't know his name, but he's the main villain to the movie. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but you could see here his size scaling next to him. So it's definitely a very large figure. I'm going to pull out the tape measure in a second, but I would say he scales very well with the common T-Rex of the main line. And I say that because the Hammond Collection T-Rex is always a little bit bigger, at about 24 inches long. And I forget exactly what his height is, but this here is, like I said, generally speaking, about that same size as a regular T-Rex line figure, which this figure in the movie, it was definitely a lot larger. I think they made him very oversized, but it's still a good size in this figure form. So let's measure him out. Hold on, I am bumping into my little plant that I have here, so let me just move him over. The D-Rex. I'm getting about roughly 19 and a half inches at the end of the tail. And the height is looking at 9 inches. So he's definitely very tall. So as far as my scaling goes, and doing the conversion, he is the equivalent of 31.2 feet long. And as far as his height goes, we said we had him at 8. Let me just check that one more time. 9 inches, I'm sorry, 9 inches. And that puts him at 14.4 inches tall. So I think the average Rex, or even the, I think that the Hammond Collection Rex is about 8 inches or 8 and some change. So I believe he is taller than the Hammond Collection Rex, but he's not longer by a good shot. So he's obviously just more bulky and less lengthy, but still nonetheless a very large figure. What I also want to do is to bring into frame this Jeep. So it's a little hard to get both of them in frame at the same time. And though I can use the wider angle view, I kind of wanted to, I didn't want too much distortion. I'll probably do that in frame anyway after this. But yeah, so the Jeep is aligned centered in its center area with the center of the D-Rex. So they should be in the same focal plane in terms of how you're seeing them. And yeah, it is. I'm going to throw this guy in here just for extra scaling. So you could get a sense of how big the D-Rex is compared to it. And if you remember that movie scene, you would know that, let me turn this around actually. In that movie scene, that the D-Rex is, he's not standing up now. There we go. That the D-Rex was considerably larger than this truck in that scene right before he ends up killing the main villain. And sorry if that was a spoiler. And he slams his arm, his hand down onto the hood of the truck, and he's towering over it. Now this he's still taller than it. It still gives somewhat of that resemblance. And the truth is that this is also depicting him standing in this way. Now, I don't think that he does have clicking in his legs, which is nice because it allows him to stand a little better. If you wanted to, you could do that to depict that scene a little better. And then if you do that, let me adjust this a little bit. If you do that, then you get a little bit more reenactment of that size and height. Because maybe he wasn't just standing straight. Maybe he was, up or on his hind legs. And in that case, now you do get a little bit more sense of that size scaling. I don't know if he would be able to hold him. I don't think so. But that's kind of how it was until the movie. He grabbed him and was holding him. So, I mean, you kind of get a little sense of that in frame there. Unfortunately, I can't get him to stay in his arm, in his hand. But this kind of gives that depiction of that, which really kind of says, like, resembling just that scene. And so the fact that he has that posability is kind of great for that, and being able to do that. And here, I'm just getting a little bit more of that wider angle, like I said before, that I want to show you. Yeah, I kept them in that same pose, but still, you guys still get the idea of that. All right, so jumping into just the figure now himself, more details on the figure up close. Take this out of frame, and I had mentioned before in the video where I did the review for this thing, I lost these. Well, my son lost them, and now I found both of them back. I remember having only one of them at the time. So jumping into this D-Rex in detail, he gets, as I may have mentioned earlier in the video before he was actually unboxed, but the timing that I did that was a little different. So if I repeat a few things, don't mind. First of all, the eyes look nice. I think they actually do look really nice in terms of just giving that sense of what you feel and see from the movie. Sorry for a moment. I'm just adjusting some of my things around me. Okay, so you guys can see it better. Let me zoom in here. I think the eyes look really nice. Like I said, it's just regular paint, but it really depicts that vibe, that like there's personality behind it. You've got the treatment of the dual molded or separate molded teeth, which are nice, and they do it in a way here where they're kind of really, it's a little different than normal because they got this whole layer here, but it's fine, it works. A lot of details inside the mouth like they do standard now, and I just think that's great. That is the new norm for a lot of these figures, because we're in a space now where a lot of things have trickled down from the Hammett collection in terms of just detailing and whatnot, going into the main line. Now, even though they had separate molded teeth before the Hammett collection was even created for the T-Rex only, now it's something that's in every figure. Huge bulbous head. The detail is nice. He definitely feels like one of those monsters that is like from Cloverfield type of thing. And I guess that's what they were going for. You got these little hands here. They're very loose. And I think because maybe they're part of the play feature. Not really too sure, but we'll find out in a moment when I demonstrate the play feature. Let me bring him back a little bit into frame. So the sculpting and everything like that is nice. They got the nails are painted. These aren't, but they have a different separate coloration on them, which is something. Overall, the figure looks nice if you're a fan of these hybrid dinosaurs. Now, he's got this arm here is movable, but it has locking mechanisms, which is great. And I think that's the case with all of his joints. Let me just check this one. Yep, this one too. So all his joints have that. And I actually think that's a huge plus. I wish more of the dinosaurs had the locking joints, because that is gonna stop them from getting loose, especially nowadays when they start having more forms of articulation, but especially when you need them to be able to hold up and stand on their own body weight. If I'm not mistaken, I believe I want to say the newer Hammett collection larger figures have had that, whereas the T-Rex, I don't know if he had that, the Hammett collection version, but having this now, I think all should get this addition into their articulation. His hand doesn't move. It looks like it has like it could move, but it doesn't. Or it's got a little bit of wiggle, but I'm not trying to push it any harder. I don't want it to break. I don't think that really moves or is intended to move like that. So that's one thing. He has this constant stance that is not very much a neutral position. I don't mean his overall stance, but I mean his leg, because this is coming upwards and that one's holding up his weight because he's a four-legged walking dinosaur. So hybrid dinosaur. So that's something that you need him to balance, but at the same time, in the movie, he always was using his front arms to do stuff. So it's kind of like a kind of catch-22 where you kind of need that to pose him. So his ability here is you can turn the tail one direction, not both. And he can smack. But obviously, this is better suited if you bring him up into that stance like that, for him to do that. And the reason why is because otherwise this leg here is always hitting the floor. So that's something, but he can't stand in this position. So because of the way his weight is, regardless of anything you would do to try to make it distribute his weight, he's not gonna be able to stand like that. He needs to be on all four because the front is very heavy. His other action, and I think that's the reason why they make these very loose and just dangling. They have no ability to pose at all. And I just think that's so they can maintain that shaking element. And when we do that where he's facing forward, and then I'm gonna do this also while we're kind of lower angle. So yeah, definitely I would say this. If you are at all a fan of the dinosaur in itself in the movie, definitely I say recommend that you get it, because the quality of the figure is great. It's a little bit pricey. If you can catch them on sale, get them on sale. I've seen him at Target. If he is available on Amazon, I'm going to put the link in the description down below. But if he's not, a lot of time Targets will have the exclusive rights to a lot of these figures. But as far as, like I said, somebody getting him, the quality's there. I think is great. If you're a fan of this figure, the size I think is very good. You know, obviously it's not exactly to the size, but it matches well with all the rest of the dinosaurs. He's still a very big figure. It's very bulky, and I think in that regards he's also very good. Now I also understand a lot of people might not be fans of either that particular movie because it really wasn't a great movie, or they might not be fans of the where the direction that the series is going in general with hybrid dinosaurs and this and that. But like I said, if you are interested in this one, I definitely think it's worth picking up. The details are there. It looks nice and everything. And yeah, it's definitely a good figure as far as the quality goes. As always, you guys, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video.